Number 10, fingerprints. Your prints are so unique that Apple trusted them as a security verification. Apple Wallet, Touch ID, that stuff was game changing. Unless you had your thumbprint, you couldn't get into anyone's phone. It was pretty unique. Your thumbprints are unique, but also they're quite mysterious. The biological function of fingerprints, these ridges on our fingertips, is not understood yet. There's one theory about how it improved grip underwater. I myself was like, we used to come from the sea and stuff. We're like Atlanteans, that's why our fingers get that. No, it's been sadly disproven. The only theory we have left is that they help improve our touch perception. But perception is a whole other thing. I'll dive into that later on, as you guessed, in this list. Number 9, right or left. 90% of people are right-handed, and we still can't figure out why. Left-handed people, they just can't seem to stop talking about it. Scientists are still unsure how it develops, what purpose it serves, if there's even one in the first place, and why one is much more common than the other. So far, a leading theory has to do with our spinal cord and not actually our brain. Other research done back in the 80s found that our handedness is determined before we're even born. Whichever thumb you just happen to suck on in the womb, that's the one you're stuck with for life. It was also thought that genetic differences between the right and left hemispheres of the brain has something to do with it. They studied gene expression of the spinal cord around the 12th week of pregnancy, and they found that left and right segments control arm and leg movements and all that jazz. But again, since lefties are so rare, we've evolved as a right-handed majority. So if you're a lefty, you're rare. And you know what? You deserve to talk about it. Hit that thumbs up if you're rare. Number 8, walk the line. German scientist Jan Suman discovered that humans, as fascinating as we are, we can't walk in a straight line, sober or not. His test subjects were blindfolded and then told to simply just walk straight for an hour. The subjects all ended up walking in a massive circle, or circles. Some were tall, like I'm 6'2", I could walk circles. I would do donuts there if I was there. This was done at the beach, the Sahara Desert, these massive open areas, of course, so you didn't bump your head or bump into anything, but still, circles over and over. So the next step was to remove those blindfolds and see what happens. But even so, the subjects still continued to walk in a circle. It was cloudy out, so although you could see where you're walking, you couldn't exactly keep track of which direction you were going. That's the mysterious part. Number 7, turn it up. Okay, you're sitting in a car full of friends, you're in the back seat, an absolute banger comes on, and at the same time, everybody yells just to turn it up. That's a good day, especially if you're riding shotgun and you're the guy with the aux. That's a good feeling. You want people to love your choice in music. But why? Same thing with DJs. You really need somebody who can read a room to have a memorable wedding, but still we can't figure out why humans enjoy music in the first place. The music industry makes billions of dollars a year. I mean, look at Kanye West, for example. People bought enough tickets to a stadium for a listening party. The guy made 12 million off those listening parties that you saw on Twitter. It's like, what compels us to spend this much money on concerts even? Our right temporal lobe is activated when we listen to music, so that of course has something to do with it. But as a whole, music is addicting. A study done by McGill College in the early 2000s found that the part of our brain activated when using narcotics, eating junk food, having sex, is the same as when we hear music that we like. What we get from music has nothing to do with survival mechanisms like eating or mating. We simply just enjoy jazz. Number 6, how old can we go? So far, the oldest human that has ever been was Gianna Kalman. She was born in 1875 and she passed away in 1997. They were 122 years old, for all those who can't do quick math. Can you believe that? I mean, there's since been a few articles that try and debunk her story, but after her, Jiraman Kimura lived until he was 116, so still, we're getting there. The human lifespan has risen over time, and we're at the point where scientists are unsure if there's even going to be a cap. Scientists believe we could live up to 150 pretty soon. 150! They think 120 to 150 will be the new average down the road. Humans are getting too advanced, so who knows? Back in the day, the average lifespan was 25 years in ancient Greece, so only time can tell. Technology is definitely helping. Even if you were in great shape that entire time, would you want to live to 150? Comment down below. Number 5. Slime mold. This is disgusting. It doesn't sound very smart, but slime mold is honestly pretty terrifying. This brainless mold that you see covering tree stumps. It's been around for a while now. It's bright yellow and it's a single-celled organism, and pretty much when it comes together, despite being brainless, they all seem to think and act as a unit. Rumor has it, this mold can smell and pulsate its way to find food. It's just this long network of veins, these veins of protein that push nuclei around. There's a time-lapse video of slime mold finding the shortest path between food sources in a maze, and it's haunting. Number 4, dreams.
Have you ever had a dream that
I will never get tired of that video, but I will get tired in general, right? And then hopefully tonight I'll have good dreams, right? That's the goal. That's what any of us want to do. We just want to avoid nightmares. Just pay your bills and don't have nightmares. That's really all you can ask for. After you watch a scary movie, you always have to watch something nice before bed because you're trying to not dream about being, attacked by snakes on a plane. It's a lot of fears in just that one dream. Snakes, planes, fire, the whole thing. Not for me. I'm tapped out. We still don't know for sure why we dream, and considering how much time we spend doing it, I feel like we should know more about that missing third of our lives. That's another thing too, dreams only last 2 hours, but I feel like I am in a lifetime when I'm in there. I have like 6 dreams a night. When I wake up, I could remember all of them for about an hour. It's kind of disturbing. I have to Google a lot of them. Yeah, we have to Google dreams. That's how much this shit matters to us. And we still can't really explain most of it. Dreams consolidate memories and they process emotions and they allow us to gain practice confronting potential dangers. Those are really the only things that we understand about them. But there's also scary things that are just, I don't want anything to do with that at night. Like the hypnic jerk, it's also not a TikTok dance. That's that feeling you get when you're falling asleep and then it feels like you're falling off a building all of a sudden. Call it the hypnic jerk. That's awful. I could really go without that. Dreams are weird. Let's move on. Number 3. Placebo effect. One time I drank some Long Island iced tea mix, like just a mix, non-alcoholic, and then I thought that I was tipsy. This was like a high school party and I was drinking a bunch and I was like, oh man, this is some good stuff. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's juice. Why wouldn't that be good, Taylor? I fooled myself. I legit thought that I was getting loose at this party, but really it was just the placebo effect. The placebo effect is psychological and physical. It's a tricky one. Patients would think that they were feeling better, leading to this mysterious list that we're on, of course, now. When you take a placebo, a Tic Tac that somebody told you was a pill, your brain will believe it and then it will release endorphins and naturally you'll literally feel better. Yeah, humans are complex. We have an explanation for the placebo effect with us somewhat, but animals, turns out they can also experience a placebo effect as well. One study in particular was on a placebo effect for dogs and their epilepsy being treated. Some factors that stuck with me with the placebo effect is that you can get one even if you know that you're still getting a placebo. Know what I mean? Someone can say, hey, this isn't medicine, it won't make you feel better, it's just a Tic Tac. Boom. And then you can eat it and then somehow through this process and all your brain stuff, you'll feel better. Isn't that the craziest you've ever heard? There's layers to this. The geniuses at Walden University are currently figuring it out, so stay tuned. Number 2, life. Yeah, here's a fun thought. How did life begin? Who are we? What's going on? Why do I have to pay bills now? I was just born, now I exist. The origins of life began billions of years ago. We began as microbes, but how did living, breathing organisms really come about? Some theories are fun, others are disturbing. It's one of those things you really don't want to think about for too long. This whole list actually is. Lightning is theorized to be a main player here in the origins of life. We know that electricity can generate sugars and amino acids in atmospheres made of water, ammonia, methane, hydrogen, all that good stuff like we have on Earth. This was the Miller-Urey experiment from 1953. There's a chance that we came from lightning. Cool. Thor ancestry. We love it. Another theory is that life originated in the deep sea vents. Little Aquaman stuff, okay? Either or, kind of exciting. These hydrothermal vents are chock full of hydrogen-rich molecules. At a little pressure, literally the surrounding rock can help then form mineral catalysts, supporting ecosystems. We came from the lightning or the sea. I don't know. I'll take it.
Number 10. Crashed car. 20 years ago, a man named William went missing in the state of Florida after visiting a nightclub, with seemingly no trace left behind and no way to find where he went. But 2 decades later, someone was on Google Maps when they noticed something strange in a pond. The man was surveying for bus routes for his work when he saw what appeared to be a submerged car near the edge of the water. He called his ex-girlfriend to take a look and see if there was a car in the pond, but she couldn't see anything due to the murky water, so she contacted her neighbor. The neighbor flew his drone over the water and confirmed there was a car, contacting the authorities. They were able to remove the vehicle and did find human remains inside, later identifying them as the body of William. He had apparently lost control of his car, but due to no one living in the area at the time, it went unnoticed for 2 decades, the dirty water keeping his car hidden for years. Number 9. Stolen bicycle. In 2008, a man was riding his bicycle through Holland when he was approached by 2 men who stole his phone, money, and his bicycle. Due to the lack of any leads in the case, the police were unable to help him with recovering his stolen things, until 6 months later. He was looking through Google Street View at the exact place where the event had taken place, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Street View car had passed by and taken a photo mere seconds before the crime happened. The view shows the man on his bicycle and the 2 men right behind him preparing their attack. Thanks to this, he was able to take the evidence to the police, who easily recognized the 2 men as brothers who were well known by the justice system and had committed crimes before. Number 8. The Dock. You may recognize this image as it went viral on social media when it was discovered and posted to the website Reddit. It shows a dock in Holland which appears to have a blood trail that leads to somebody's body. The user posted it saying that someone had been killed by their house, and this was photographic evidence of it. People were in a panic trying trying to solve the mystery and figure out who the person was and how this event had come to pass. Fortunately, however, some other people took the time to look further into the image and really look at the details of what was going on. It was revealed that the two figures at the end of the dock were not a criminal and a body, but instead just a man and his dog. What many thought was a blood trail was actually just the result of the dog having gone for a swim in the water and then trailing the moisture down the dock as he walked, the color just being the color of the wood when it gets wet. Number 7. Stolen car. Now for another case of the Google Street View car being in the right place at the right time. A man named David had his car stolen right out of his driveway, and he probably felt like the unluckiest guy on earth because he had just bought this new car after his first one had been destroyed by a joyrider. But in actuality, he was pretty lucky. His son decided to look up their home on Google Street View, something I'm sure we all did at some point when we were younger, and when he looked at the driveway, he realized that the Google car had actually managed to catch the thief in the act of stealing the van, with a full view of his face and what he was doing. The police believed that the camera had managed to catch the man just moments before he drove off. After convincing Google to unblur the license plate so they could confirm the evidence, they were able to make an arrest on the crime 2 years after it had taken place. Number 6. Swiss farm. When you think of Switzerland, you probably imagine snowy mountains and alpine skiing resorts, and you probably don't picture people running around on beautiful green farms. But they are there, and one particular one was growing a lot of corn when they were found out for growing something else. I don't think I can say exactly what they were growing, but I think you get what I'm expressing here. Anyways, they were hiding this other farm behind rows and rows of corn to keep it hidden from view. Unfortunately, they probably hadn't considered Google Earth managing to snap a picture of it from above, revealing to the police their illegal side hustle. The discovery led to the arrest of 16 different farmers and the confiscation of over a ton of grass. The police admitted that they hadn't actually been searching for what they found and called it a chance discovery. Number 5. Robbery. In 2011, a woman had her home broken into in Oklahoma City. The robbers had weapons and prevented her from interfering while they ransacked the home, the whole event taking place in broad daylight. She said that the whole thing lasted for over an hour and she was devastated and terrified. More so when the police told her that there was no forensic evidence or other leads that they could follow up on to identify the criminals and bring them to justice. So if it all took place inside the home, how did Google Earth manage to catch what was going on? Well, 3 years later in 2014, a friend was looking at the home on Google Street View when she saw a picture of 2 men walking down the street just outside the home. The men matched the description that the woman had given of the robbers, and with this evidence, the police were able to launch an appeal to get the case reopened and subsequently solved. Number 4. Tax dodging. During the 2000s, an Italian businessman attempted to carry out a tax evasion scheme, and he would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. The finance police discovered that the man had sold a villa in 2002, which was noted as having a specifically phallic-shaped pool. With this clue, they took to Google Earth to find the property and were quickly able to. It became clear when they saw the aerial view that the property was clearly worth much more, especially when compared to similar properties in the area. This then led to them checking into all of the man's dealings, including his bank account checks. These checks revealed various different omissions, which totaled to around 7 million euros of dodged taxes. I picked this one specifically because I think it's incredibly topical, with Shakira's hips recently being found out for lying about paying taxes as well. Number 3. 9 years. William wasn't the only case to be solved thanks to overhead imagery of a submerged car in a lake. In 2006, a 72-year-old man named David Niles walked out of his favorite bar in Michigan and was never seen again. A decade passed and no one had any clue where he went, his family eventually giving up any hopes of finding him. Almost 10 years later, a man was decorating his Christmas tree when he thought he saw something deep in the lake across the road. He took a look on Google Earth and it revealed the distinct shape of a car in the water, very similar to the image that revealed William's whereabouts. Cops were able to pull the car out and the remains of David were found inside, identified by his wallet. His son-in-law said, "For us today, it's a closure of a long search. Why God waited 9 years, I have no idea, but we're happy. It's good to have him home." Number 2. Blood Lake. In 2007, people who spent their time looking around on Google Earth discovered something that they felt was pretty startling. It's a lake in Iraq that is estimated to be 500 feet wide and around a half a mile long, and it's bright red. People immediately started speculating that this is from some sort of terrible crime, and it's a lake that has managed to be stained red by blood. Others suggesting that the color came about due to a butchery using it as a dumping ground. Innocent theories were that of a specific type of algae or pollution and chemicals changing the color of the water. Unfortunately, we will never actually know what caused the color, as if you look at the lake now, it's back to normal. I know this doesn't really count as a solved mystery, but maybe you know why it was red and you can let me know in the comments and you can be the one who solved it. Number 1. Secret swimming pools. While the majority of things on my list today have been individual crimes reports, let me tell you about something that was discovered that was much more widespread. You may not know this, but in Athens, Greece, you need a special permit to be allowed to build a swimming pool on your land. And who the heck wants to pay for that? Reports show that there were only 324 pools in Athens, which investigators thought was just way too low a number. So financial crime investigators took to Google Earth to try and figure out the truth about what was going on. Within a few months, they had used the application to discover over 16,000 hidden and undeclared swimming pools on people's properties. The Greek government was cracking down on fraud at the time, and by tracking down the homeowners and collecting that pool tax, they were able to make a lot of cash. So if you're planning on hiding a swimming pool in Greece anytime soon, maybe consider a camouflage cover.
Number 10. The wow signal. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Ellman was researching at The Ohio State University when an incredible and unexplainable radio signal was detected using the school's Big Ear telescope. In those days, information was run through what was called an IBM 1130 mainframe computer before being printed on paper and then studied by hand. Upon reviewing the findings, Jerry came across something he had never seen before. There, in a vertical column, was the sequence 6EQUJ5. Jerry was amazed and immediately circled the sequence and wrote "wow" right beside it. Hence the name. The signal they picked up had come from nearly 220 million light years away, and there was no explanation as to how or why a radio signal could be detected from that distance. It immediately became a sensation in both the science community and the rest of the world, and was used to support the search for alien life in the universe. Jerry himself says he's convinced that it certainly has the potential to be the first signal from extraterrestrial intelligence, and I agree. Number 9. Einstein's last words. Albert Einstein was a German-born theoretical physicist, widely acknowledged to be one of the greatest and most influential physicists of all time. Einstein is best known for developing the theory of relativity, but he also made important contributions to the development of theory of quantum mechanics. Einstein passed away at Princeton Hospital, New Jersey on April 18, 1955. He died because of internal bleeding caused by a rupture of an abdominal aortic aneurysm. Einstein knew he was going to die, as he refused treatment because he didn't believe in prolonging life artificially. There was a nurse present at the time of Einstein's death, and she actually heard him mutter something, but she didn't know exactly what it was, as she couldn't understand German. Maybe Einstein revealed an incredibly important realization, or he just said goodbye to the world in his native language. But guess what? We'll never know, and this will be one mystery that can't be solved. Number 8. Genghis Khan burial site. Genghis Khan was the founder and first Khagan of the Mongol Empire, which later became the largest adjoining land empire in history. Having spent the majority of his life uniting the Mongol tribes, he launched a series of military campaigns which conquered large parts of China and Central Asia. He achieved everything he wanted, but the emperor died during the fall of Yinchuan, which is now part of China. The reasons for his death are unclear, as well as the place he was buried in. Researchers think it might be somewhere in the vicinity of the Mongol sacred mountain of Burkhan Khaldun in current northeastern Mongolia. According to legend, he asked to be buried without markings or any sign, and after he died, his body was returned to present-day Mongolia. Marco Polo wrote that even by the 13th century, the Mongols did not know the location of the tomb. Another folkloric legend says that a river was diverted over his grave to make it impossible to find. Other tales state that his grave was stamped over by many horses, that trees were planted over the site, and that the permafrost also played its part in the hiding of the burial site, but but to this day, we still don't know where it is. Number 7. City of Atlantis. Writing in the 4th century BC, the Greek philosopher Plato told a story of a land named Atlantis that existed in the Atlantic Ocean and supposedly conquered much of Europe and Africa in prehistoric times. In the story, the prehistoric Athenians strike back against Atlantis in a conflict that ends with Atlantis vanishing beneath the waves. While no serious scholar believes that the story is literally true, they have speculated that the legend could have been inspired in part by real events that happened in Greek history. Many believe that the lost city of Atlantis story was an allegory created by Plato to illustrate the dangers of hubris and greed. In contrast, others point to evidence of ancient cultures in the Mediterranean that could have been connected to Atlantis. This story has captivated people's imaginations for centuries, with theories about its location ranging from a sunken island near the Azores to civilization in Antarctica. Despite extensive research and exploration, the truth behind Atlantis remains unknown, and the mystery may never be solved. Whatever the truth, the lost city of Atlantis will likely remain a mystery for generations. Number 6. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer active in and around the Whitechapel district of London, England in the autumn of 1888. Attacks ascribed to Jack the Ripper typically involved a female night worker who lived in and worked in the East End of London. Their throats were cut prior to abdominal mutilations, and the removal of internal organs from the last 3 of the victims led to speculation that Jack had some anatomical or surgical knowledge. Rumors that the deaths were connected intensified in September and October 1888, and numerous letters were received by media outlets and Scotland Yard from individuals claiming to be responsible. The From Hell letter received by George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee was allegedly sent from Jack the Ripper, and it came with a half-preserved human kidney, reportedly taken from one of the victims. Now, most of the reports done by the police were destroyed during World War II, but what from remains, we are able to learn that more than 2,000 people were interviewed, upwards of 300 people were investigated, and 80 people were detained. However, there was no conclusion to who the killer was. But to ease your minds, Jack the Ripper has to be dead now, so no worrying about him. Number 5. Tomb of Cleopatra. Ancient writers claim that Cleopatra VII and her lover Mark Antony were buried together in a tomb after their deaths in 30 BC. The writer Plutarch wrote that the tomb was located near the Temple of Isis, an ancient Egyptian goddess, and was lofty and beautiful monument containing treasures made of gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, ebony, and ivory. But the location of the tomb remains a mystery. In 2010, Hazay Hawass, Egypt's former antiques minister, conducted excavations at a site near Alexandria which contained a number of tombs dating to the era when Cleopatra ruled Egypt. While many interesting archaeological discoveries were made, Cleopatra VII's tomb was not among them, he reported in a series of news releases. Archaeologists have noted that even if Cleopatra's tomb does survive to this day, it may have been heavily plundered and unidentifiable, so it seems like nobody will be finding that treasure anytime soon. Number 4. The Copper Scroll. The Copper Scroll is one of the most mysterious artifacts in history. It was discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1952 and is believed to be around 2,000 years old. The scroll consists of 2 copper sheets covered with a text written in ancient Hebrew script. It contains a list of 64 items or locations of hidden treasure, including gold and silver coins, sacramental vessels, and other valuable items. The scroll is not only remarkable because of its age, but also because it is the only known ancient text written on metal. This means that it has been preserved much better than other scrolls that have degraded over time. Now, despite its incredible age, many items on the list remain a mystery, and their locations have yet to be discovered. There have been many attempts to decipher the Copper Scroll, but no one has been able to make sense of it. yet. Some experts believe that the scroll could provide valuable information about the history of Jewish people in the region at the time, while others think it's simply a hoax. Whatever the case, the Copper Scroll remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Number 3. Julius Caesar's son. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Roman Empire surrounds the existence of Julius Caesar's son. Some sources claim that he was adopted by Julius Caesar and named Caesarion, while others allege that he was the illegitimate child of the Roman leader and Cleopatra. Regardless of which version of the story story is authentic, there's no denying that the case of Caesarion has yet to be solved. The only evidence of his existence comes from ancient texts, which refer to him as both as an adopted son of Caesar and an illegitimate child of Cleopatra. However, none of these texts can be verified, leaving its true origin unknown. It's also unclear what became of him after Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, leading some historians to speculate that he may have had his life ended or gone into hiding. While the mystery of Caesarion may never be solved, it does make for an exciting tale to contemplate. Did he exist? What became of him? Was he ever genuinely recognized as Julius Caesar's son? These questions remain unanswered, but perhaps the truth about Caesarion will come to light one day. Number 2. The Sumerians. The Sumer are the earliest known civilization that was located in the historical region of southern Mesopotamia, aka current Iraq. Sumerians were the first to use a written language, they invented a number system, the first wheeled vehicles, sun-dried bricks, and irrigation for farming. But historians are not completely sure where they came from. They had an isolated language, meaning that it was not related to surrounding languages, so that makes it difficult to trace their journey. They suggest that the Sumerians may have come from North Africa, while according to some other data, they might have originated in Caucasus. There are even more theories, and it just shows how mysterious the origins of the people who created the first human civilization are. And coming in at number 1 is the Money Pit. The Oak Island Money Pit is a mysterious site on Nova Scotia's Oak Island that has been rumored to contain buried treasure. The legend of the Money Pit dates back to 1795, when 3 boys discovered a depression on the island and found a layer of flagstones beneath. What began as an innocent exploration quickly became a massive treasure hunt, with hundreds of searchers excavating the island for over 200 years. The Money Pit has been dug down more than 200 feet, but many believe that the treasure lies much more deep, like as deep as 500 feet. As the diggers have gone deeper, they've encountered multiple booby traps, such as flood tunnels and stone plugs designed to protect whatever lies at the bottom. So far, the only artifacts that have been discovered are 2 links of a gold chain and a stone inscribed with the letters VI and C, which some believe stands for Viva Cristo. Despite these discoveries, the mystery of the Money Pit remains unsolved. Many believe it contains a great treasure, while others think it may be a hoax. While hundreds of theories have been proposed, from hidden pirate booty to ancient Native American artifacts, no one knows what lies at the bottom of Oak Island Money Pit, and I'm not sure we ever will.
Starting off this countdown, we have Cicada 3301. Now this is one of the most famous internet mysteries of all time. So it all started in 2012 when a mysterious organization, Cicada 3301, posted a weird message on 4chan. According to the message, there was a secret hidden within their posted image, and they were recruiting highly intelligent individuals to try and solve it. They said that solving this would lead them on the road to finding them, and that they looked forward to meeting those that solved it. Well, it turns out that by opening the image file in a text editing app, a string of characters would appear. When decoded, it led users to a website with even more weird messages. Some say that they solved the mystery. Others say that those who completed the puzzle are recruited for something and are never heard from again. What are they recruited for though? That's what I would like to know. In our 9th spot, we have Heaven's Gate. This was a creepy and popular American religious cult on the internet that believed in UFOs. In 1997, police found 39 members of the cult dead inside of a house. Apparently, the members took their lives in order to ascend and board an extraterrestrial spacecraft and go to another planet. They were all found wearing arm patches that read Heaven's Gate Away Team. To this day, the website is still up and running, and no one knows who's running it. Now in 2015, the administrators behind the website did do an email interview. In the interview, they called themselves Tela, which stands for the evolutionary level above humans. They claim that the dead members are actually alive and have transcended their human bodies, and that they will come back eventually. To this day, their identity still remains unknown. In our 8th spot, we have Chip Chan. This is one internet mystery that has always left me unsettled. Chip Chan is the name given to a Korean woman that was discovered in a 4chan webcam thread in 2008. It immediately caught the attention of a number of people because the footage revealed this woman sleeping in unusual positions for long periods of time at unusual times of day. In fact, at first, people thought that she was dead. She also sleeps in weird positions like on a chair or on the floor. After doing further investigation, users found that this woman believes that a mind control weapon was implanted into her ankle bone and under her left eyebrow. This chip is said to control her, and that's what's making her sleep all the time. She also claims that she is being held by a corrupt officer named P, and that she installed these webcams into her home so that she can see what happens to her when she's sleeping. This story is just so freaking creepy, and I don't think it's ever been solved. In our 7th spot today, we have Kanye Quest. Yep, not Kanye West, Kanye Quest. Kanye Quest 3030 is an RPG game that was released in 2013. Now it seems just like a silly game. It centers around Kanye West, who on his way to take out trash travels through a wormhole and into the future. He then has to take down an evil dictator, and you got Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre in it, and you can have a rap battle with them. Now the game seems pretty harmless. That was until a player found out the game's dark secret. At one point in the game, you can interact with a displayed message. It seems like gibberish at first, until people realized it said, "Ascend and worship the based god." Further on in the game, you are asked to enter a prompt, and you can type anything you want. But if you type "ascend," the whole game changes and you're put in this secret area. Eventually, players got to a screen that congratulated them on being an open-minded and curious thinker. They then instructed the player to not tell anyone about what they found. It then asks if you wish to participate. If you click yes, then they give you instructions on an exercise that you need to complete. Furthermore, players discovered a QR code that led to a now defunct website. In the end, it was discovered that the game has been tied to the religious cult of Ascensionism and to a mysterious company, Ascension Records. The true meaning of the secret of this game has remained unsolved to this day. Coming in at number 6, we have Jack Froese. Now there are a number of creepypastas out there about someone dying and then their loved ones receive phone calls or Facebook messages or texts from the dead person. Well, this actually happened in real life. Jack Froese was a 32-year-old man from Dunmore, Pennsylvania. In June of 2011, he died suddenly and unexpectedly from a heart arrhythmia. 5 months after Jack's death, his friend received an email from Jack's account with the subject line, "I'm watching." Soon his family started getting emails from Jack as well. Now of course they didn't believe it to be Jack for a second, but whoever it was, they knew intimate details regarding his friends and family, details only Jack would know. To this day, no one knows who sent these emails. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with GhostNet. This is the name given to a large-scale cyber spying operation uncovered in 2009. In fact, it has been described as one of the most extensive operations ever uncovered. Yet, no one knows who was behind this operation. So in 2009, it was found that an organization infiltrated over 1,000 computers across 103 countries. They did this by sending emails with attachments or links to individuals or organizations. By opening the file, the user would unknowingly download a virus onto their computer that allowed the hackers to gain complete control of their computers, so they could read and send data and even turn on someone's webcam and microphone. Like I said, no one knows who was behind this, but since the network originated in China, some believe that the Chinese government had something to do with this. Others believe that the CIA or the Russian government were behind this. In our 4th spot, we have the most mysterious song on the internet. This is the title given to a song with an unknown name, sung by an unknown artist with an unknown origin. It all started when a man named Darius came across an old cassette and liked a song on there and wanted to find the name of it. Him and his sister couldn't figure it out, so they turned to the internet for help. Soon, thousands of music enthusiasts came forward to try and figure out this song. To this day, no one has figured out who's behind this song, hence why it's given the name the most mysterious song on the internet. What's even weirder is when the song was shared online, a number of people recognized it. They said that they have heard it before, they just can't put their finger on it. In our 3rd spot, we have Markovian Parallax denigrate. This mystery started back in the 90s and revolves around a number of weird and confusing posts that appeared to be complete gibberish. Back then, there was something called Usenet, which was like a forum. On August 5th of 1996, hundreds of weird messages started appearing on Usenet. No one knew what they meant, but people knew that they were related because each post had one thing in common. The subject line read Markovian Parallax Denigrate. Turns out that these are secret codes, but no one has been able to crack them yet. In our second spot, we have Ted the Caver. Now, some say this is merely just a creepypasta, whereas others believe it's a true story. I'll let you decide what you want to think. Back in February of 2000, a man known only by the name of Ted the Caver posted about exploring an unknown virgin cave passage in the US. According to Ted and his journal entries, when him and his friend entered the cave, they found a narrow passageway with a small hole. So they drilled the hole and decided to explore it further. But as they went to explore this cave, weird things began to happen. Him and his friend heard ghastly screaming, they found weird hieroglyphs on the cave walls, and apparently encountered evil spirits in the cave that followed them home. All of this was backed up with images of him and his friend exploring the cave. The last post was on May 19th, 2001, when Ted revisited the cave and said he would update everyone when he returned home. He never updated the post, making people believe that he never returned home. In fact, this mystery was so popular that a horror movie was made off of it. And in our number one spot today, we have the Lake City Quiet Pills. Now, this is another very weird and wild one. So it starts with the death of a Reddit user, Religion of Peace. He was a moderator for the subreddit Jailbait, which is disturbing on its own. But he mainly posted about his military experience and guns, and would encourage posts to get people to upload pictures on his website, lakecityquietpills.com. But as many investigated his site, they realized that hidden inside the site's HTML code was a motto. It said, and I quote, "Dispensing Lake City quiet pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest since 1968. It continued on saying, "Shade is maintaining the calendar and access to the file dump. Angel has the job postings for EU and Asia. We aren't sending anyone to me. No one. Don't ask for listings." Then what followed were what appeared to be job listings. Here are some. Immediate need, 8 to 10 Chinese Korean, fluent, Korean dialect accent, details after contact. 12-week, half pay. And they went on to say that they needed Arabic French people. No papers, no problems. A lot of people then theorized that this site was used as a way to pass assassination jobs back and forth. As people dug further, they found a government-owned bullet factory in Missouri called Lake City Ammunition Plant. Meaning, the quiet pills that they're referring to are bullets. I mean, yeah, you get shot by one of those and you'll be quiet. So maybe this website was a front for some illegal activity.
Starting off this countdown, we have Jeanette De Palma. In 1972, a dog was out playing in the forest when it brought a decomposed forearm back to its owners. From there, the search was on for the missing person's body. Turns out that it belonged to a woman named Jeanette De Palma. She was missing for 6 weeks, but eventually the rest of her body was found on top of a cliff. Now, what's weird is that the area surrounding her body was covered with occult symbols. Rumor has it that she was sacrificed by cult members or killed for pissing off Satan worshippers. But sadly, police couldn't determine the cause of death due to her badly decomposed body. So not only do we not know her cause of death, we also don't know why she was killed or by who. In our 9th spot today, we have the missing leg. On April 19, 1995, at 9:02 a.m., a bomb was detonated inside of a truck by a federal building in Oklahoma City. Sadly, 168 people lost their lives as a result of this attack. Now, while investigators were working on this case, they came across a detached leg in a military boot. They originally thought that the leg belonged to one of the victims, Lakeisha Levy. However, she was buried with both her legs, so it couldn't have been hers. In fact, her body was actually exhumed and analyzed. But because her body was embalmed, taking DNA tests from the leg she was originally buried with wasn't possible. So it's not known whose leg this belongs to. Was it Lakeisha's leg? If so, then who does the leg that she was buried with belong to? Investigators either think it's another victim or an additional terrorist. But to this day, nothing has been confirmed. In our 8th spot, we have the Copper Scroll treasure. In 1952, a copper scroll was found alongside other Dead Sea Scrolls in a cave. Now, this scroll was quite interesting. As its name suggests, the writing was engraved onto a copper scroll. When translated, it apparently talks about a bunch of hidden treasure. Now, this scroll is over 1900 years old. During that time, the Romans might have been out to capture the treasure, so they hid it in order to prevent them from finding it. So maybe this scroll is a key in finding the treasure. The question is the treasure real? Will we ever find it? And if it is real, then where is it hidden? In at number 7, we have the human feet. Since 2007, around 20 dismembered human feet have washed up on the coast of Salish Sea in British Columbia, Canada. What's weird is that the feet are often found still perfectly inside of their laced shoes, and investigators still don't know what to think. A couple of the feet have been identified, like one belonged to a missing male, one belonged to a missing fisherman, the other belonged to a woman that jumped off of a bridge. So it's believed that these feet belong to victims of terrible accidents or belong to people who took their own life. It's still very strange, like why have so many feet washed up in the same area? Now, police ruled out foul play, but some people believe that these people were gang members or victims of sacrifice. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Big Gray Man. The Big Gray Man is said to be a cryptid that haunts the summit of Ben Macdui, located in Scotland. Some people think that it's just a legend, whereas other people have actually seen this creature. It's said to be an extremely tall, human-like creature, being over 10 feet tall, with short hair and broad shoulders, with long arms. Needless to say, you don't want to encounter him. But like I said, there's been so many eyewitness reports that many think this beast is indeed real. To this day, scientists still haven't been able to come up with an explanation for the sightings. In our 4th spot, we have the Oak Island Mystery. The Oak Island Mystery is a 200-year-old legend that insists that pirate treasure is buried on Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Multiple attempts have been made to discover this treasure, however, none have been successful. In fact, several people have died trying to unearth this mystery. People believe that the treasure contains William Shakespeare's original manuscripts, Marie Antoinette's jewels, and other artifacts worth millions of dollars. Named the Money Pit, the supposed spot for the treasure is over 200 feet deep and is filled with booby traps to prevent anyone from reaching the treasure. The question is this legend true, and will we ever unearth some treasure? Because so far, nothing has been found on Oak Island. In our 3rd spot today, we have the Bigfoot. For sure, you have all seen that infamous blurry photo of the Bigfoot, walking, but is he actually real? Well, over the years, there have been a number of credible sightings of this beast, leading many to believe that he is indeed real. Take Michael Green, for example. He is a former US Army tank commander and fraud investigator who ended up encountering Bigfoot. Why would someone of that rank lie about Bigfoot? During a camping trip in a North Carolina forest, he claims he encountered this beast. He said that he woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of something approaching his tent. Soon, it was directly over his tent and let out a deafening roar that, I quote, scared the devil out of him. He claims that this beast was about 7.5 or 8 feet tall and striding with ponderous arm swings. He truly believes that this was Bigfoot. So could it be that the Bigfoot is indeed real? Let me know what you think. In our 2nd spot, we have the woman who named her killer. Now, this case is the definition of bizarre. Now, this case has been solved, but how it was solved still remains a complete mystery. Let me explain. So in 1977, a woman named Teresita Bassa was murdered and her jewelry was stolen. Police tried finding the perpetrator and the jewelry, but it was unsuccessful. That was until Bassa's coworker, Remy Cho, got in contact with her ghost. So Remy hardly knew her, okay? Then she just randomly started having visions about her. She kept seeing this man's face behind Bassa. So she decided to try and actually contact her from the dead. She sat down with her husband and actually channeled her spirit. She took control of Remy's body and told her husband the entire story of her murder. It was done by a man named Alan Showery. The two went to the police with this information and they investigated Alan, and he was arrested for the crime. Isn't that wild? Like, literally, she got in contact with her spirit and the spirit told her how to die. Like, this whole story is just one big mystery. And in our number one spot today, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, this is one case that keeps me up at night. So in February of 1959, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out to travel the snowy mountains of Siberia. However, they all ended up mysteriously dying one by one. So during the night, something caused them to cut their way out of their tent and flee the campsite. The hikers were not properly dressed. Some were even found completely naked. Some had died from hypothermia, others were killed by physical trauma, and it was very gruesome. So what happened that night? Was it an animal attack? Military involvement? Infrared sound-induced panic? These are all some of the wild theories out there. But to this day, we still don't know the truth behind this incident.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the Beale Ciphers. This is an old American tale that seems too good to be true, but it still has people trying to hunt down this mysterious treasure to get rich. The Beale Ciphers were made in the 1920s in Virginia. Now, they were a secret that was passed to an innkeeper, or so the legend goes. They were apparently written by a man named Thomas J. Beale. That's obviously where the name comes from. Now, when Thomas gave these ciphers to the innkeeper, it wasn't some challenge to see if the innkeeper had the skills to unearth the riches. No, he said he was gonna come back to get the papers from the dude, but then he disappeared, and that was the last time anyone saw him. So the innkeeper sat on these papers for 23 years before he had to crack them open to see what was inside. Turns out it was a bunch of codes that the innkeeper couldn't crack. Before he died, he passed those codes off to another man who was able to crack one of the 3 codes. This code broke down what was actually in the treasure, which was apparently $43 million worth of gold and silver, and that's $43 million in today's currency. Now, apparently the other 2 codes tell you who the treasure belongs to and where the treasure actually is. So one of those codes is absolutely useless. I'll tell you, if I crack that code, that treasure belongs to me. Also, there's a good chance that either Beale went back to get the treasure himself and didn't tell the innkeeper because the ciphers would have been useless if he moved the treasure, or there could have been someone else who cracked the code and has already been there to take the treasure and didn't tell anyone. Like, if I cracked that code, the last thing I would do would be blab about it. I would be real quiet about it. I would take my treasure and then I would flip it into cash and no one would be the wiser. Coming in at number 9, we have WT1190F. That sounds like a code you put in to have unlimited ammo in one of the Doom games, but this is a much more interesting find. WT1190F was some space debris that had people all over the world confused about what was going on. People at NASA, as well as several other space agencies around the world, could not figure out what the hell that was or where it came from. And when we're talking about the massive void known as space, it would seem that it really could have come from anywhere. The debris eventually entered the atmosphere and burned up upon entry, so whatever it is, it's gone now. The suspicion is that it could have been something released from a spacecraft, but then the question becomes, which one? And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming in at number 8, we have the Bay of Jars. We know that Europeans did not come to Brazil until the 1500s, and it's thought that those were the first people to cross the ocean to touch this new continent. That was until 200 Roman jars were found on a beach in Brazil. Treasure hunter Robert Marks was exploring Guanabara Bay in Brazil to see if he could come up with any goods. Well, he would find more than some gold coins or a treasure map. He would unearth 200 Roman jars that might change the Brazilian history. This was back in 1982, and soon after the discovery, the bay was closed to stop thieves from coming through and stealing these priceless artifacts. Since then, no one has been able to find out how these jars got there. As far as we know, the Romans never crossed the ocean to make contact with the Americas, but maybe one ship was brave enough to make the journey and ended up docked in Brazil with a ton of of goods and no one to trade with. There's also the possibility that these were brought over by colonizing Europeans who wanted to sneak away to the New World with a treasure that could change their life. There are suspicions that the Brazilian government isn't interested in finding out why these jars are there because it would shift the narrative of Brazilian history, and they are happy with things the way that they are. Coming at number 6, we have the disappearance of Angela Hammond, one of the many missing person cases that has never been solved. Angela Hammond was talking on a payphone with her boyfriend back in 1990. She screamed at the top of her lungs right after she described a green pickup truck that had pulled up next to her. Her boyfriend sped off to where she said she was and saw the pickup truck. He slammed his car into reverse, but then he blew the transmission and the truck got away. No one ever found out who took Angela Hammond. Coming in at number 5, we have the sleeping sickness pandemic. As many of you know, COVID-19 isn't the first time that we've had a pandemic sweep across the world. There have been plenty before the one we are currently dealing with, but one you might not have heard of was encephalitis lethargica, which passed through most of Europe back in 1916. It was a strange illness that doctors never found out how to treat or how people were contracting it. It had a fatality rate of 33%, and even if you were one of the lucky ones who could make it through this mysterious sleeping spell, you might never be the same again, as it's thought it would cause long-lasting brain damage. Basically, it would start with someone getting very tired, like they have mono. This would progressively get worse until they felt like they could no longer work and needed to stay in bed. Eventually, they would fall asleep and drift into a coma. Some people would never wake up from said coma. The last case of this was in the 1930s, but we still have no idea what the sickness was or where it came from or how to treat it. I'm sure if it came around today, we would have the tech to solve this problem, but this is still very much a creepy one. Coming in at number 4, we have the dancing plague. Might as well stack one pandemic on top of another one, get them all out of the way so we can have smooth sailing from here on out. The dancing plague was back in 1518, and it started with just one lady who was busting it down, and some more people jumped in until there were over 400 people dancing around. This sounds like what's going to happen in the streets as soon as all the coronavirus bans are lifted. Well, the rumor is the dancing lasted 4 weeks, and some people danced to death. Now, there isn't any hard evidence to prove that people died from dancing, but people definitely did dance for weeks. Some of the suggested reasons why: psychedelic spores were released into the airs, everyone started tripping, and they had to bust a move. Coming in at number 3, we have Cleopatra's tomb. One of the most famous rulers in history was buried with the one she loved, Mark Antony, not the singer. You guys can get all those jokes out of your system now. But is J-Lo the reincarnation of Cleopatra? Probably. Back to history. Cleopatra was apparently buried somewhere near the temple of Isis, as people loved her as much as they respected the Egyptian god. Now, outside of her tomb being a great archaeological find, because we know how much old dudes love finding dead bodies wrapped in toilet paper, there's something much more valuable than a queen that has been dead for over 2,000 years. Apparently, the tomb is filled with gold and jewels. Now, there is a chance that this tomb has already been raided and there won't be anything worthwhile in it, but if it's still intact, cracking this thing open would make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. But if you're pulling this one off, everyone around you might want a piece of the pie, unless you have the skills to dig up the tomb on your own. So you might have to pull off a Scooby-Doo thing where you pretend to be a fake monster so you can scare everyone off and get the riches to yourself. Coming in at number 2, we have what's going on in the ocean. This is one of the biggest mysteries on the planet. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about what's going on below in the ocean. I mean, we have explored a good amount of it, but there's still so much we don't know, and we are kind of destroying that environment, so if we don't start looking into it soon, we might lose it forever and never get those answers. And if there are evil mermaids down there, they might be gearing up to go to war with us for all the things we've been doing to the ocean. And coming at the number 1 spot is quantum entanglement. Now, I want to start off this point by saying that I am too stupid to know what this is. I think I have an idea of what it is, and that's why I'm putting it on this list, but if I get this very wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. Now, quantum entanglement is how a particle can be affected by another particle that is nowhere near it. Now, why is this strange? Because what we understand as physics is that two particles that aren't close to each other shouldn't be able to affect one another, and if they could, they would have some means of communication that is faster than the speed of light, which is also thought to be impossible. Now, scientists have have witnessed this happen, but they have no explanation as to why it's happening. So this breaks the laws of physics, and we don't know why. Coming in at number 10, we have what is dark matter? There are several mysteries that the universe has brought us, like how did the universe start? What is at the center of the universe, and how is every dog a good boy? Another one on that list is what on earth is dark matter? Here's the thing, we can't even see dark matter. We just kind of know it's there. How does that work? Well, we see it interact with other things even though we can't see it. Now, how does that work? Well, I have no idea, and we're getting a little too deep into the science for me. But what I do know is that dark matter is supposed to make up more than 85% of all matter in the universe. Well, since there's so much of this stuff floating around in the universe, why is it so hard to find? This is like trying to find a good movie in the DC entertainment universe. Well, Shazam was pretty good. But back to my point. The reason that dark matter is hard to detect is because it doesn't interact with the electromagnetic field, or at least that's what people assume. Coming in at number 9, we have Kryptos. So I will admit there is one person who can solve this mystery, but if they did, it would kinda take the fun out of it. Kryptos is one of the most famous codes in the world. It's a massive art piece that was created back in 1988 by artist Jim Sanborn. It looks like a giant scroll, and on it are 4 sections that have massive cryptograph puzzles on them. 3 out of the 4 riddles have been solved, but the 4th has yet to be cracked. There have been a few hints given by Jim himself. He said that the answer from the other 3 passages have clues as to what the answer is for the 4th. Also, he has revealed some of the words as Berlin, clock, and northeast, and still, people haven't been able to get to the bottom of what this thing means. I mean, come on guys, the dude's giving you full words. I'm sure he'll lay it all out before he dies, or has the answer written down somewhere in case he passes in an accident, but unless he tells the world, or some genius is able to break it down, we may never know what it means. Coming in at number 8, we have Who is Anonymous? A group of global hackers who unveil some of the dirty secrets that are going on behind the scenes. Who are they? Well, we will probably never know. For those of you who don't know, Anonymous popped up back in 2003, and at first it was mostly just them trolling the Church of Scientology. But since then, Anonymous has become one of the most powerful social movements. Whenever there's a serious political event, you can bet that Anonymous will show up to leak some pretty serious information. They have been widespread supporters of WikiLeaks, and most recently, they were seen during the George Floyd protests. It's hard to tell which claims of Anonymous are real, since anyone with a V for Vendetta mask could claim to be them, but I wouldn't want to be on their bad side because it would seem there is no database that they can't get it into. They have leaked information connected to the police, military services, and even the former President Donald Trump. Coming in at number 7, we have Deciphering the Voynich Manuscripts. If you haven't heard of the Voynich Manuscripts, well, let me take you down a creepy rabbit hole that will leave you scratching your head and probably a little afraid to fall asleep. The exact date that the manuscript was written is unknown, but it's thought that it would have been created somewhere in the 15th century based on the type of paper it was written on. The origin is also unknown because it was written in a language that has never been seen before, but it's thought that this thing could have come from Italy. But the language or code that is used as text in this manuscript has never been deciphered, even though historians have been trying to figure out what's going on with this book since the 90s. There are illustrations of flora in the book, so it's thought that it could be some record of alchemy or potions. And of course, because it's written in an unknown language, people think it could be the work of the devil. In the end, the whole thing could just be a joke or a bunch of gibberish that some madman wrote down in his spare time. People could be working tirelessly to crack a code that means nothing, or it could be the greatest work of dark magic on the planet. I wouldn't worry about it though, because we're probably going to be long gone before someone ever figures this out. Coming in at number 6, we have the Steppe Geoglyphs. History has left us with so many mysteries that it's hard to keep up with them all. Whether we're talking pyramids, Mayan temples, or is Atlantis a real place? All of these things have us questioning reality. Well, throw the Steppe Geoglyphs on the list because they are a head scratcher. They were discovered back in 2007 by researchers who were trying to find some sort of ancient pyramid system in Kazakhstan, and what they found was just as bizarre. Markings left on the earth that span for hundreds of miles and come in all sorts of strange shapes. Some of them are large arcing lines and others look kind of like symbols that we would recognize today. The oldest of them was over 8,000 1,000 years old. The answer as to why they are there or which group of people made them is still a mystery. It's thought that some of the markings could have been left to track the sun and the stars, as many other civilizations have done similar things, but there still isn't enough information to confirm that, so we're going to jump straight to the most logical answer, which is aliens did it. That's the one that everyone likes to use to explain anything old and weird. Coming in at number 5, we have the lost city of Atlantis. Was this a real place? Was it the most technologically advanced place in the world? Does Aquaman live there and rule with an iron claw? There are some people who swear that Atlantis is a real place that succumbed to some sort of natural disaster and might hold the greatest treasure on the planet. There are other people who think that it's all just made up, and then there's a third group of people who just want to hang out with mermaids. Coming in number 4, we have How Did They Ruin Game of Thrones? Just a warning, there is definitely going to be some spoilers in this point, so if you don't want to see it, skip to number 3. Okay, here's a fun one, but how on earth did the most popular show on TV, a show that had people clamoring all over it, and was the cornerstone of our culture, just fizzle out into nothing like it almost never existed? Now there are some ideas as to how this could have happened. There are rumors that the directors rushed the final season, that HBO told them that they could take as much time as they wanted, but they got an offer from Disney to work on Star Wars, so they sped through the final season so they can move on to something bigger. Later, the final season of Game of Thrones was so disastrous that they lost the Disney deal. There were just so many unanswered questions. Why did Arya never use her superpowers? How did a dragon get killed so easily? Why did Euron Greyjoy always pop up in the right place at the right time? Why does Jon Snow never fight one-on-one with the Night King? What was Bran doing in the whole final showdown fight? Right now, we have no explanation for any of this. Coming in at number 3, we have the Copper Scroll treasure. A lost treasure is always a great way to get people interested in a mystery. You're telling me there's an untold amount of money somewhere, and it could be all mine with a little bit of luck and a lot of digging? Well, kind of. The treasure of the Copper Scroll was first revealed back in the year 1952. It was part of a great archaeological find in a series of caves next to the Dead Sea. The Copper Scroll is literally a massive piece of copper that is writing engraved into it. Man, to think there was a time when copper was less valuable than paper, so you'd write down all your information in a giant piece of metal. The Copper Scroll talks about a treasure of gold and silver so large that most people think it's a lie. The size of the treasure would maybe be the largest gold and silver reserve in the world. Now, there is some backing to this. At the time that this scroll was written, there was a Roman force that was controlling the area. The people didn't like this, and they were waging war against the Romans. Now, because of this, there could have been several wealthy people who didn't want their goods to fall into the wrong hands and decided that they would pool their resources to keep their moolah in the same place and safe. But the question still stands. If the treasure is real, where is it? Coming in at number 2, we have the ghost boats of Japan. Now this sounds like some sort of urban legend, but I will tell you that this is a very real thing, and it's one of the creepiest stories I've heard in recent years. The ghost boats of Japan have been washing up on the shores of northeastern Japan, and no one knows who sent them. They have all been wooden ships with no one on them. Well, no one alive has been on them. Every boat that makes contact with the shore has bodies in it. Sometimes it's just body parts, like a series of skulls were found on one boat. Other times it's a few bodies laid on top of each other, and the numbers vary every year. One year, 80 bodies were found in mysterious wooden boats that washed up on Japanese shores. Now, even though the exact breakdown on why this is happening is still a mystery, there have been some clues that have popped up along the way. One of the biggest is that there was some Korean writing on board of one of the ships and a torn piece of the North Korean flag. So it would be a good guess that North Korea is doing this. Why they would be sending ghost boats with dead bodies in them out into the water, well, we still can't answer that.